So yes, Ubisoft granted me early access to Assassin's Creed Mirage, the full version of the game, and I have been playing it nonstop, so much so that I am confident enough to give my own opinion about the game, should you buy it or not. Does this work going back to the traditional Assassin's Creed formula? Because that's what every Assassin's Creed fan, from what I know, has been begging for. They want more Assassin's Creed 1, Assassin's Creed 2 style gameplay where it's really hyper-focused on stealth and combat as a way and means to kind of survive and escape. And that is exactly what they have done here with Assassin's Creed Mirage, but also blended in some of the newer elements from the more modernized Assassin's Creed games. But should they have dropped those elements completely and kept it 100% traditional? That's the big question. Now, also, a disclaimer here, my gameplay might look different from the other gameplays that you have seen out on the interwebs because of the Assassin's Creed 1 color filter. When I found out that there was an Assassin's Creed 1 color filter for this game, I was like, that is immediately going to be my go-to option. So I switched over to that immediately. Yes, you do have this more vibrant looking Assassin's Creed Mirage that you can be playing, of course, but I wanted the more dark, grittier experience. So I opted in for the AC1 color filter. I highly recommend it. If you are an Assassin's Creed fan, turn on the color filter. I think you guys will love it. Now, also, we're going to be discussing a little more about the story later in this video. Very spoiler-free, of course. But know this is your typical Assassin's Creed story. So, yeah, it's not going to be anything absolutely mind-blowing. So, yeah, we'll get into that later on. Now, this game I slowly fell in love with, despite it being a more intimate Assassin's Creed game, clocking in around 20 to 25 hours. And that's great. I'm all for that. And the reason why it's more of a slow burn here is because the tutorial, it takes so long to get through, but once the game opens up, it feels great. I'm going to talk about why the tutorial took so long in the story stuff. No spoilers again. Now, let's get into the gameplay, the stealth, the notoriety system, parkour, combat, and how it all works together. So yeah, stealth is absolutely king in Assassin's Creed Mirage, with combat very much as a means to prepare and escape. Now, this is Assassin's Creed 1 through and through. No doubt you can really feel it, and that's one of the things that I personally really like about this game. Now, when stealth fails, you are caught, of course, and that's when the notoriety system really kicks in. This is the wanted system for the game, essentially. And it comes in multiple tiers, of course, and the ultimate tier is where they really go after you. But what I love about the notoriety system is that when you are walking around in Baghdad, which of course is the open world setting in Assassin's Creed Mirage, you got to remember that everyone has seen your face on a poster and they will call you out. So you'll have some woman like USOB call you out right there on the spot. They will run and get guards and make sure that justice is served. And this is something that I think the game really does well, is this sense of kind of like paranoia and danger in Baghdad, that if you are caught whatsoever killing guards, if a civilian sees you, there will be a definitive response, and it can be like fast and furious. So just know that it's very wise to be aware that when you are actually taking on guards in this game, you don't want anyone to see the kill. So that's one of the elements of the game that I personally really love. It feels like it's truly an open world that responds to whatever you do. Now, there is social stealth, which is returning, of course, and you have the option of sitting on benches, hiring mercenaries, and hiring people that will ultimately distract guards, or even go in and full-blown attack a fortress so you could sneak past. I love that. So they do have those elements in the game, but to actually interact with these elements, and a lot of these social stealth options are offered to you during main critical mission paths, but you require a token to really activate them. So you have to have a token to hand over to the mercenary group. And the way you actually obtain these tokens by doing contracts. So I love how contracts actually tie into the open world stuff itself. And what it does is it tells the mercenaries, hey, I'm on the side of Baghdad. I'm on the city side. Here's proof. And that's something that I personally really love for story reasons, and it works very well because it also ties these contracts into your main missions. It's like you're doing your contracts to prepare for your main missions, knowing that there are these multiple paths that you can take during some of these bigger missions. And now we got to talk about exploring the world of Baghdad. Now, this is an absolutely stunning game. There's just no way around it. And for the most part, it ran very good on my PC. I did notice some micro stutters here and there on my PC, but I was able to adjust the settings to make it look absolutely beautiful and run very, very smooth. So I had minimal problems in that regard, and I'm sure they're going to fine tune and update it as we go. But what is here is beautiful. The lighting engine and everything is stunning. Now, back to exploring the world. So yes, parkour is an integral part, at least in my opinion, of the Assassin's Creed franchise. And it's like they kind of steered in a direction with the franchise away from parkour. And it broke my heart, honestly, because it's such a staple of the franchise. So to see parkour back in such a big way makes my heart sing, because I am hopping over rooftops, finding paths to my target. And yeah, I love it. So parkour, a lot of people were also worried about how it looked kind of slow in the initial gameplay reveals. This is one of the most responsive characters in any Assassin's Creed game, and I think that's a good thing. However, if I do have a complaint about the parkour system, I do wish that the game kind of kept you at one steady pace through and through instead of slowing you down, speeding you up, slowing you down, speeding you up. I just wish that when you press that accelerator, so to speak, it kept you going at that steady pace, no matter what is in your way. There's moments with the parkour where I definitely did do a double take, and I was like, did he just do that? So they did accomplish some really cool stuff here with the parkour mechanics. So yeah, I have to say overall, parkour is back finally in Assassin's Creed, and it makes my heart sing, and I hope they keep it back in Assassin's Creed games going forward. Now, there are some differences between being in the city, Baghdad, and the exterior of the city, which is more desert. And that's where it kind of opens up and gives you an opportunity to kind of take like a breather and have some downtime and even do some horse riding. And this again mirrors what they accomplished with Assassin's Creed 1, Assassin's Creed 2, having different pacing. And that's something that I actually enjoyed with the main mission path, is you'll do a bunch of missions in Baghdad, and then they'll take you outside of the city, and you'll suddenly be on a horse in a more rural environment with desert or crop or what have you, with a beautiful sunset. And it just feels a little bit like a breather, and it changes the pace. I personally really like that. And mentioning pacing, yes, there is combat in Assassin's Creed Mirage, but it's definitely not the core focus of this game, because it's more of your fallback opportunity if you do get caught. Your way of clearing the area and then running out of dodge. That's super important. Yes, you have your parrying, you have a light and heavy attack, and then you can dodge unblockable attacks as well. Now, new swords can be obtained with their own perks. An example perk would be being able to have consecutive hits that ultimately deal more damage as you go, or another sword that if you do a perfect dodge, it'll slow down time. That sort of thing is definitely in the game. Now, looting is not as intense in this game, and I'm actually very, very thankful for that. It's not like every single guard is going to be dropping like a blue or a purple or whatever. This is not Assassin's Creed trying to be like a Destiny or whatever. No, it very much feels like a traditional Assassin's Creed. Not to say there isn't loot, but loot is more going to be in chests that are guarded around the open world. And this is something that I love, because it's like a challenge to get to that chest. You see it and you're like, behind a locked door, who has the key? And then you have to go find the person with the key, but you realize, wow, there are tons of guards around this dude. How do I handle this situation? And it's always about not getting caught, doing it stealthily, and slowing down and really focusing up. And just to reconfirm, this is not an RPG. Instead, skills are unlocked through story progression for the most part, and don't expect this to be like Assassin's Creed Valhalla. And I think a lot of you will actually celebrate that fact. Now, there is, of course, a wrinkle in the gameplay you might have noticed. Probably seen the chain kills where you teleport to enemies, and you're probably worried about that as well. And honestly, I can see where you're worried, because that was definitely not in Assassin's Creed 1. or Assassin's Creed 2. Now, this is honestly entirely optional, and you can easily get away with not using this at all. So I could say that's good news, but at the same time, I feel like I would prefer it if they didn't have this in the game whatsoever. But it's nice to note that, yeah, you could play it still in a very traditional fashion and ignore things that you really want to ignore. There are some really flashy looking swords and weapons, and that's the sort of thing that I'm not into. I want it to look super realistic, ultra realistic, like history. And yeah, I avoid equipping those weapons, even if they offer like amazing perks. I want it to look like what I loved about Assassin's Creed, like Assassin's Creed 1 and 2. So about the Eagle, I feel like it's been relied too much as a crutch in recent games. Some people might like the idea of being able to have that drone view and mark all the enemies through your Eagle. But the good news is this: Ubisoft at least found a middle ground here. Your Eagle cannot enter certain restricted areas and is worthless when snipers are around. I absolutely love this. Again, it makes the game feel more intense, more dangerous, and you're not so reliant on that crutch of being able to suddenly see the game from a drone type perspective, and it makes it feel more intimate, just like Assassin's Creed 1. Now, bigger missions offer a variety of gameplay options and ways to lure out your target, the ultimate person that you have to assassinate. It's very Hitman, which is great. I love the multiple options, these like side options, and talking to characters and discovering the side story, which can culminate into getting to your target. They have like 2 or 3 of those in these bigger missions, and I think that's so well done. I also love the care they put into thinking about the player's frustration to avoid that. For example, I went on a main mission to infiltrate a fort, but realized I didn't have enough health potions. I groaned, realizing I will have to go back out of this mission, go back into Baghdad, and get all the stuff I need from the vendor, make sure I have all my throwing knives, that sort of stuff. But thankfully, Ubisoft realized this and purposely placed a camp of vendors outside the fort I was about to raid to ensure that I did not have to do that. I did not have to exit the mission, go back to Baghdad. They were aware of this. So that sort of care towards the player's needs, I really do appreciate. Now, for the main mission path itself, it's laid out in investigations which culminate to assassinating your main target. And that main target within this kind of like short story that has an ending is very much on a constant carrot stick until you investigate what's going on around him and find him. This is very much Assassin's Creed 1, and Assassin's Creed fans, like really hardcore Assassin's Creed fans, I think will actually notice this and appreciate it. However, the story at times can really feel very much do this, do that, X, Y, and Z, and that's it. There are moments where Basim can explore who he is and some of his connections that he has to the beginning of the game. Not going to say more than that, but this is very much the typical Assassin's Creed fare when it comes to the story. And I feel like Ubisoft should not be afraid to get away from telling origin stories. One thing about Assassin's Creed is it seems like with every game, it's always an origin story. You have some normal guy or girl who has a tragedy and now has powers, essentially like Marvel. So in that way, yeah, they're going through what I would call like a Marvel syndrome, and they shouldn't be afraid to break the mold. Give us a story about perhaps like a somewhat established assassin and go from there. I'm fine with that. We don't always have to have it as an origin story. That's why I said before in the video, the tutorial felt kind of like a slog for me personally, because I'm like, man, I have seen this told out many, many times before, but with just different assassins throughout the franchise's history. It's time, in my personal opinion, to try something new beyond an origin story. But yeah, what is here, there are some fascinating characters within the story arc that are actually well voice acted. So I myself found that the story acted as a consistent way to basically give me teases onto my next target to assassinate, and I was there for that. So it definitely added in this kind of like thrill of finally getting to your target, and that's what the story conveys. Now, the game isn't here to really innovate on Assassin's Creed formula, but really embrace what it did best in its roots, in Assassin's Creed 1 in particular. So yeah, this game is definitely more about catering to the fan base, finally really listening to the core elements of what makes an assassin stealth, parkour, relying on those first and foremost. And then if it goes all wrong, you better get out of Dodge. And if it really goes wrong, yeah, you're going to be in combat fighting for your life. And that's how Assassin's Creed Mirage feels. And I'm down for it. I personally recommend it, especially if you want Assassin's Creed to return to its roots. And I think going forward, we kind of have 2 audiences here, or maybe even 3 audiences in the Assassin's Creed community. You have people that absolutely love games like Assassin's Creed Odyssey, Valhalla, that are more RPG centric, RPG focused. Then you have people that are more into Assassin's Creed 1. And I think they're going to be more into Assassin's Creed Mirage. And then, yeah, you have the third audience, which is going to be into both. But I think what Ubisoft needs to do going forward is rotate between the 2 styles to appease to the audiences. So yes, embrace the RPG mechanics from Assassin's Creed Odyssey and that sort of style of gameplay, and then the next time rotate over to more of a traditional experience to really keep both audiences happy. I don't think they're ever going to stop with the more RPG centric Assassin's Creed. I don't think that's ever going to go away, but I think this would be a good middle ground, a way to appease to both fan bases within one singular fan base. So yeah, I think that's one way they could do it going forward. But anyway, there it is. Yeah, Assassin's Creed Mirage. You know what? I'm going to go play some more here. I personally am really enjoying it. I'm so glad, by the way. I know it's something minor to many people, but to have that AC1 filter in the game, that color filter, just like, I love that. That one little thing that makes it more gritty, more realistic looking. Kudos to Ubisoft for throwing that in there. But thank you all so much for watching. Stay tuned here for more Assassin's Creed and, of course, open world gaming goodness. And I will see you all next time. Take care.